Hi everyone, welcome to another InfraView Spotlight series at InfraViewing. I'm really excited to have Simon Dobbs with us today, the Director of Cloud at Bytes. Quick summary on Bytes, a leading global IT solutions provider with a diverse portfolio of services across cloud, security, AI, end-user compute, data center storage, virtualization, and a lot more. I'm sure Simon will give us a lot more detail than I have, but they are sitting now as Microsoft's #1 partner, and I think, if I'm correct, working alongside over 100+ technology partners. So I don't know if I've done that any justice, Simon. Was I nearly there?
Not bad. Five
Not
out of
bad.
10.
5 out of 10. Perfect. We got areas to improve. But Simon, look, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. I know it's not easy to find the time, but yeah, should we just dive straight in? And do you want to give the audience a bit of an overview, a quick career to date, if you like, on yourself?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me, Tim.
No worries.
So, current role is Director of Cloud at Bytes, but I've been at Bytes for 10 years now.
Okay.
So, you know, a long tenure here now. I started out as our first pre-sale specialist in what was the multi-vendor team at the time. So I've been here, seen a big change in Bytes over those 10 years, big change. And then kind of, I've done various different roles in my time at Bytes. I ran the pre-sales team for several years, and we kind of worked across all of our core propositions. So cyber, modern work, cloud, data center and infrastructure, before taking on this role about 18 months ago.
Okay.
And so the new role is I have commercial responsibility for our cloud practice, which is Azure, M365, AWS, a little bit of GCP, and then all of the services and managed services that we deliver around those core platforms. So big part of our business. Lots going on, lots of change. Data and AI is rapidly become front and center in the strategy.
Absolutely.
And we'll talk more about that on how we're trying to make that front and center versus kind of a sideline, and all the things we've been doing over the last couple of years to get us there.
Perfect. No, I love that. Great summary. And look, I love the fact that you've come through that sort of progression from consultant, architect, pre-sales, head of pre-sales to then sort of director, if you like. So are you director of pre-sales and sales? Does that both fall within your remit across that sort of cloud, AWS, modern work practice?
So we've kind of had a few different permutations on how this work.
Okay.
Over the last year, I also started up our customer success unit. And last year that was sat with myself whilst we kind of got it to the point that it needs to be. And because I kind of moved over from the pre-sales team, and so over the last year we've been looking at how getting the operating model right, and kind of maturing the business so everyone is in the right lanes and things like that. So the customer success unit now sits within our services division, which is the natural home for it. And then my team is a team of specialists who are they're all about being on the shoulder of the account managers and helping to expand opportunities and driving from opportunity creation through to close, and working with all of the delivery teams.
Perfect. So have you got separate divisions in terms of, right, we've got pre-sales over here, sales over there. Sales are going to go out there, create the opportunities, effectively knock down the doors. When there's an opportunity, grab a pre-sales solution architect who is almost like the glue between tech and sales, meet the customer, gather requirements, high-level solution designs, proposals, etc., and then pass to post-sales. Is that?
Yeah, it's similar to that, right? I think in organizations like Bytes, it's such a broad portfolio for our account management teams to be able to articulate clearly.
Okay.
I don't envy their task. So
Yeah.
there is kind of specialist roles across our core propositions, and it's their job to act as that kind of that sales lead for their particular pillar and proposition, that then kind of works with the pre-sales and delivery teams to get to the the point of cutting SOWs and delivering work and things like that. And our pre-sales team now sit within the services division.
Okay.
And kind of to get, that's one of the things that I'm sure many of us are working on at the moment, is trying to get customers working with us as quickly and as seamlessly as possible, with the pace of change as frictionless as possible, is what it's all about.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it seems like across that sort of broad technology stack, you're still sort of streamlining that with specialists in each one of those pillars, whether that be sort of cloud, modern work, security, AI. Yeah.
Yeah, try to, and then make sure all of our teams, are working together all of the time, and the feedback loop is really important.
Perfect. Good. Okay. And then from a Bytes perspective, what's the core focus right now? Because, you've been there 10 years. You've been through the change personally. Also, as a company, we mentioned AI, a moment ago. But what is the focus right now for the business? If we were going to tell the audience, how do Bytes want to be perceived and seen?
So you can kind of see it from the Sam and the CEO down. Our core areas of focus, and what we're known for in the market is cloud, cyber, and AI. So those are the three big rocks that we focus on and that we want to be known for. And so kind of everything that we do and everything we think about and everything we talk about tries to be tied back to those three core technology areas, which are big enough beasts in themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the talk of the town right now from an AI perspective, but yeah, people are still looking to continue better that service from a cloud and cyber perspective, right? Okay. So I think we were chatting about this the other week that I think AI has been bounced around the market, right, for the last sort of 18 months plus. And, from a recruitment perspective, my phone didn't stop going 18 months ago. Everyone wanted an AI architect. And my first question was, to do what? And people just didn't know. It was kind of like, as soon as one person said they're using it, doing it, implementing it, everyone jumped on it. But we've started to now see almost like a separation of customers over the last 6 to 8 months where they're kind of leading from the front from an AI perspective, and they've almost spent a lot of time internally introducing AI from a system process point of view to be able to use that as like a mini case study to then go to their customers and show, I suppose, what the do's and don'ts and the issues and problems and how you overcome them. How have you seen Bytes, or what have you done differently to other IT solution providers out there from an AI perspective?
I think we're all kind of working with similar parameters and with similar vendors, right? I think one of the things that we did, which allowed us to kind of gain some really early traction, is we were really quick to market with kind of Copilot and things like that. And I think pace. I think I've sort of alluded to it a couple of times. Pace is always key in business, and 100%. It's even more key right now. And so when we got that kind of slightly quicker out the blocks than others, the demand from customers was huge. So usually on a webinar we might have if it's a good webinar we might have 100 and 150 customers, and we'd be pleased with that. We were getting 1,000 joining.
No way.
Yeah, we're getting like 400 or 500 people turning up to events where we were sort of usually looking for 200 to 250 as a good outcome.
Yeah.
So that built a bow wave of momentum that we could start to work with customers on and actually see, where they were at and where the technology was at as well. Because, the hype has been enormous for years, but it's also been, it's needed to mature and things like that. And I think that's also part of what's happened over the last 18 months is the technology is starting to mature, and, so therefore the ways that you can deliver it and the ways you can actually use it are rapidly maturing as well. So, the place that we're at now, both from internally at Bytes and externally, is it is becoming a massive force multiplier for productivity. And I think the next thing that we want to focus on is shifting away from the productivity side of things into that actual helping our customers to transform customer journeys. And if we can, as we start to do that and deliver against that, that's where the transformation opportunities are enormous. And if you have bottom line impact, revenue impact, improve customer experience, improve customer journey, give more insight into their customers and get more insight out of their data, that's going to be massive. And I think the technology is starting to get to the point where we can start to really, really drive that home.
No, I mean, wow. First of all, if you're used to getting 100 to 250 sort of join, whether it be a seminar or event, to then suddenly go to 1,000, I don't need the exact number, but how many of those were existing and new? Do you know the split between that? Because that's a huge jump, right? To suddenly go from the typical 100, 200 to then suddenly 1,000. I get it. If someone's going to shout about AI, everyone's going to jump on and probably want to see how you guys are doing it differently or etc. But do you know out of that huge jump?
So I think it was mostly existing. You know,
Okay.
we've got a big customer base that we trade with. Um,
Yep.
so it was mostly existing, but I think what did happen was the target audience and the types of people, and you know, the people within the organization that came on, that joined, was a difference and a step change from you know,
Perfect.
a typical day.
And brilliant. I love what you said there in terms of going on that journey with the customer. I think that's so key. I mean, it's always been key in the sort of solution provider world, but even more so right now, certainly where we've seen that sort of transformation of technology and that utilization within AI. Yeah, I suppose the strap line right now is getting away from sort of transactional into transformational, and then taking that customer on that journey, which is great to see you guys doing that, certainly across, yeah, an audience of that size. And then, I mean, while we're talking about an audience, you know, what does the perfect client look like for Bytes, whether it be size, style, type, sector?
Well, you know, by virtue of our background and, you know, our heritage as a VAR, which is still core and fundamental to who we are, you know, that's not
Of
going.
course.
That's the expectation of our customers, and that's our, you know, that's what we're known for. And Microsoft being the absolute cornerstone of that, you know, that's none of that is about to change. But by the virtue of that, you know, we have a really broad account base.
Okay.
You know, thousands of customers that we do things with, across public sector and private sector.
Yep.
So there isn't a sweet spot vertical or industry that we work with, but I think, you know, typically it's that 2 to 5,000 user organization is where we're best known for in the market, and where we have
Yep.
some of our strongest relationships, you know, where they have good, credible, capable technology teams with, you know, the right budgets to kind of go and you know, innovate and deliver and things like that. But they need the kind of partner that we are to help them navigate their way through the market. But
Love
equally,
that.
you know, we work lots and lots with, you know, companies underneath that kind of size and above that size into enterprise customers. And, you know, we tailor, I suppose, long story short, we try to tailor our message and, you know, resonate with the customer that we're dealing with. It's not a generic message to every segment of the market. We
Yeah.
tailor our messaging based on the kind of the customers that we're dealing with, because they've got their own, whilst there's commonality, their own, you know, pressures and needs and wants that we need to deliver for them.
Absolutely. I mean, look, it's not a small number, 2,000 to 5,000, right? I mean, I appreciate that it's not the be all and end all. You know, you've mentioned that you'll look at customers that are smaller or larger. And actually, the main thing there is, are they ready to be innovated? You know, are they ready to go on that journey? Are they invested in working with a partner like Bytes that are going to advise, consult, and deliver? You know, we come across it time and time again that, you know, customers say they want it, and then there's a constant pushback. You know, I think in any industry, any sector, any market, you know, if a customer is genuinely invested in taking their business to that next level, then use a specialist, right? And allow them to take them, advise, and go on that journey. So, yeah, no, I love that. Innovate. I mean, that's what, you know, today's world is all about. You know, can we provide that innovation? Can we provide that next level of consultative approach to benefit that business? Because I think we've kind of not sat still, but, you know, we've been sitting on the same sort of technologies for quite a while. And since the AI has sort of transformed how we work internally to therefore then penetrate that solution externally, it's super fast. But you mentioned pace earlier as well. I mean, Christ, the MSP solution by world is fast enough, right? And now now we've got to make it even quicker. Okay, so I mean, that's obviously come with a lot of challenges as well. You know, is there any sort of personal or business challenges you've had to overcome, you know, that really stands out over the last sort of 12 months, 18 months, 2 years?
Yeah, so I suppose there's a few things. Well, whilst
Okay.
we've spoken about innovation a lot,
Yep.
customers, you know, the UK economy is not growing,
No.
and so therefore it's difficult for customers to grow as well. And therefore, you know, whilst everyone wants to innovate, there is huge price and budget pressure, you know, in pretty much every organization right now. Every
Definitely.
organization is also looking at how can we reduce cost, where can we strip cost out. So, you know, those are two massive topics at the moment. You know, it's kind of, people want to innovate, but they also want to mitigate risk and they want to mitigate costs. So it's trying to strike the balance of those competing pressures. That's a really interesting thing to navigate at the moment. And to your point about it being a bit of a slow 18 months to adopt AI, part of it is there's not a really healthy R&D budget just lying around for customers to go and just play with stuff. That's not really where people are at the moment. So you've got to find innovative ways to help them manage the day-to-day and improve operations as well as go faster with net new projects. So that's definitely a challenge we've seen over the last 18 months.
Yeah.
This is not about politics, is it? But risk and things that are happening in the world and all the rest of it is changing the way people look to deploy and where they deploy and how they deploy and all of those kind of things is a big thing.
Yeah.
And then also it's, you can see it in our results. It's been spoken about a lot, but the Microsoft changes to fees 18 months ago was a big, was a significant impact on our business.
100%.
So that was something that meant we had to pivot, and we were already moving to be a more service and managed service organization anyway. That was already the stated strategy. It just meant we had to do that even faster and even quicker, which you can see in the results now. Yesterday it's starting to bear fruit.
Absolutely. And look, it's a really interesting topic because the old school way of, I suppose, driving forward was kind of hire more to do more, where it's kind of sort of flipped the other way now. We still need to hire and invest, but in what people or system to be able to do more for less, if that makes sense, and utilize the technology that we've got to be able to drive that service to our customers, but not to a point where we jeopardize the service that we've always done for our customers. So I can imagine that being a huge challenge as well. So certainly with the customer base that Bytes have as well, right? Suddenly you need to make sure you've got everything there in place to continue doing the service that you've always done, but then innovate on top. That then comes with strategy, time, cost, and money, right? So it's it's not an easy process. And you talked about pivoting as well. I think that's really key. And I think it's so important. And I love the fact you mentioned that because, everything's not as straightforward as what we'd like, right? Sometimes we do have to pivot in slightly different directions. You talked about working with customers on actually what they want and need, opposed to just going in with one hat fits all. We've moved far away from that in the channel, certainly from a solution provider perspective. Some customers aren't ready, for the latest cutting edge tech. So we've got to work with them until they are. And in terms of, I suppose, the plans, I know we talked about AI and, we talked about the future of technology around cloud, cyber, AI, etc. But is there an immediate plans for Bytes right now from a sort of go-to-market perspective over the next sort of 12 to 18 months or few years?
So I suppose our plans over the next 12 to 18 months, I think, so if we go back a couple of years to, I said it a few times, AI and data and all of these kind of things were already sort of, in the mix. But exactly where the revenue was, being frank, and, how and where to make money out of these new things as just the existing is, it's been something that everyone's been trying to wrap their head around and find, what is the right priority, the right priorities for us as a business that will allow us to, keep delivering the core fundamentals of our business and then allow us to innovate. So the next 12 to 18 months is now, I said cyber, cloud and AI are our stated strategies from the board down. It's now, how does our organization just get slicker and quicker at delivering against those? And I think, you can see some of the things being, some of the ways in which, people like Palantir and Anthropic and the way that their models work and the way that they engage with customers. You have sales, delivery, customer success, pre-sales, a mix of those people, way more connected, way more knitted together, way closer to the customer in a kind of continuous feedback loop than perhaps historically you're used to, whereas it's sort of a bit of a linear process to get from one end to the other. Yeah. And I think, as everyone's trying to find the right way to succeed in this kind of world of agentic AI and things like that,
Yeah.
that kind of pod and core and nucleus and feedback loop is really critical, because that's how you can kind of turn it into a continuous innovation approach, or something along those lines. So that's something that we're thinking about, is how do we make ourselves show up like that as many times as possible.
I love that, and you've mentioned that feedback loop a few times now, and it's just so important, right? Communication, feedback. How we working with customers. Where's the benefits? How can we do more? And I think unfortunately some companies just miss it. They're still focused on that sort of, like, I don't know, one-dimensional VAR head, just sell product, make money, high margin. But actually, if you continue doing that, you are going to lose customers, because companies that, like you've said, Bytes are focused on innovation, customer journey, feedback, communication, and how we can effectively just offer a better service, right? I mean, that's what we want to be doing: quicker, slicker, faster, and better, without hindering any of the service that we've always done, but try and improve that. So, I love that. And I mean, it's not an easy task, certainly with the amount of customers that you guys have got, and also the team that you're managing. In terms of, I always ask this, building the right culture. Some people shy away from answering this, but I'd love to get your thoughts on it, because I think, dare I say it, when COVID hit us, the whole world got made remote, if you like, and obviously a lot of people in PS anyway were remote. It didn't sort of change their lives, but from a managed service perspective, everyone was used to doing first, second, third, sitting in an office, and everyone was just constantly 5 days a week, and it was like, right, everyone's now fully remote. We're outside of that now. Now we've got hybrid models. We've got people wanting to come back into the office to build internal relationships, and again communicate, and just work on that sort of culture piece. How do Bytes do it? And what's the culture like?
I think it's been an interesting few years, and an exercise of different ways of working together, hasn't it?
Sure.
Over the last 5 years. I think it's something we're always all trying to work on and figure out, because everyone is kind of more spread out than before. But I think it distills down to a few things for me. I think it's making people feel connected, making people feel heard, making them feel valued.
Love that.
And making them feel connected to the strategy. So I think connection, value, and the ability and a voice are really important things that allow people to feel like they have they've got impetus, and they've got they can drive value. And I think if you're driving value and you feel like you're delivering value for a company, that's when you feel most connected to the business and enjoy it more. And then it helps if the business is growing as well, right? Because it's always easier to create positive culture when the business is growing. But so that's those are really critical things for us that we try and focus on. And so for within my division, and the team that I look after, try to. I'm sure I don't get it right all the time, because we're always.
I'm sure you do, Simon. I'm sure you do.
All right. I get it right all the time.
It's perfect.
But people having the authority to make decisions.
Love that.
We try to praise each other's wins as much as possible. There's channels and things that we have that are dedicated to getting the team to promote wins and things like that. And then when we have team meetings, I try not to. I started doing this recently. I try not to talk at the start of it, because I think then if I talk at the start of it, then people are just going to be thinking, well, Simon wants to hear this, so therefore we should say something along those lines, versus them actually maybe thinking about what they want to, what they want, what point do they want to get across, what could we improve, where could we improve, what do they actually think versus what do they think I want them to think. As that's one of the things I'm trying at the moment, to try and really amplify all of our voices, and again, I think feeling connected, and that we can actually drive change where it's relevant, not interfering in areas that we don't need to, because that doesn't help either.
I absolutely love that. I was writing down as you were talking, actually, and straight away, connect, value, voice. But then when you brought that back to your own personal style, before you said it, I was like, when you're saying you let them think, which is such a basic thing, but so missed in management and leadership, right? I'm a big believer of opinions count, right? I sit there at board with customers and sit there with candidates at senior level, understanding what's their style and what do they want from teams when they inherit or look to grow. And actually, it's that I want to work for a company, one that is connected, shares the right values, has a voice, but then drive value with a purpose, right? If it doesn't start from the top and it's not all in sync and consistently throughout that business, that's where we start breaking apart, right? And people start going off in different directions and the culture starts to fall, etc. But I love what you said there. You celebrate the small wins, give people the opportunity to bring something to the table that they can actually be part of, drive with a purpose, feel valued in the actions that they, I suppose, implement, offer, etc. Opposed to, like you said, some managers or leaders might go, this is what we're doing, great, now go and do it. Where actually, I love it. What do you guys think? I always go back to that phrase, what stuck out for me when Clive Woodward, the ex sort of England rugby manager, teamship. And he always used to sit here and say, the only way I'm going to get everyone to go on this journey, and play the best they possibly can in sync is to ask them, what do they want? How do they want to do it? How do they want to work together? And it's kind of just like a really simple thing to do, but I think missed. And I love what you said there. You kind of sort of let them do the talking at the beginning. You can guide them through what you think could be best or better, but actually let's start with, where do you guys want to be? What do you guys want to do? How are you guys going to do it? What's your approach? What's your focus? And you kind of create the optimum solution, right? But the biggest thing that comes out of that, you've got a whole team that have come up with this idea or this solution together. So by default, they're going on that journey as one. And that is where we see the most amount of success. And so I love that. I love that. And actually, do you know what? Let's bring it back to you then. We've talked about the business. We've talked about, those tech pillars. We've talked about, perfect clients, your go-to-market, how you innovate. But just in terms of more about you, what's your biggest sort of career success to date, or something you're really proud of?
I think one of the things most proud of is that, that the kind of our early adoption of and going to market around AI, like I spoke about at the beginning.
Yeah.
That was, Bytes hadn't always been at the kind of ahead of the curve. That's not, historically, that's sort of not necessarily where we played. I'm not saying we always are today either, but that was something that was a step change for Bytes and allowed us to get ahead on various places, and lots of the metrics we have with Microsoft and things like that tell the story of what that actually turned into and manifested in terms of actual pounds and pence and revenue and recognition from Microsoft as well. So that's something I'm really proud of, because taking a bit of technical insight and turning it into something that actually drove our business forwards. So that's something I'm really proud of.
Yeah, and look, you should be, right, because I often sit here and say, I suppose there's a lot of people that fear change, and there's others that embrace it. And we've, like you've alluded to, over the last 18 months, had to go through that whole transition of AI and look at how we're going to use it internally, externally, etc. But it's not easy. Certainly when you're doing your day job, you're managing multiple people, you're still looking after customers from the traditional technology revenue that you guys have always created. So how do you handle that as an individual, as a leader, as someone that's well respected and highly regarded within the channel? Does that excite you when, for instance, when everyone started saying, right, we now need to do AI, or this is the new hot topic? Do you get excited, or is it just another thing that you just got to do? How do you handle that change and demand and challenge?
Yeah, well, the only constant is change, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you've got to accept that there's going to be change, and there is a side of AI that does scare me to a certain degree, but equally, the genie's out of the bottle, so the best thing to do is make it work for you. So but I think in terms of trying to focus and prioritize, because it's important not to go running after every new thing and every new vendor and every new service. You need to pay close attention to what is the expectations in the current year that we're working in, what is going to make up the bulk of our revenue in a particular area, and make sure that we don't lose sight of that, but then and carve out enough time one, nurture and enable some of the new services and products and all the rest of it, and make sure that they kind of do start to increase the revenue mix, and so make sure they're fostered and nurtured correctly, and then with one eye on what's coming next, which is a mixture of obviously talking to our key vendors and partners in regular reviews and things like that, and reading and keeping on top of what's happening, and then it's trying to spot the patterns and connect the dots, and when you find the right pattern that's going to make a difference to our customers and therefore to us, and therefore something that's worth us paying attention to.
Love that. And spot the difference, right? And identify what are we, where are we spending our time? So what stood out there is as much as we all want to be first, and we got to move at pace, actually we got to almost sort of bring that into perspective and say, well, there's still got to be a strategy behind it. Yeah, because we don't want to lose sight of what's going to make revenue, what's still going to continue to offer that premium service to our customers. So, and I love it. You said it's there's certain elements that scare you, right? And I think owning that is important, because if we're kind of not invested emotionally and mentally, we kind of like, we'll just see how it goes, where that's where problems start to occur. Well, this does scare the life out of me, but it's here to stay, so let's embrace it. Let's strategically put something in place that is going to be beneficial for Bytes and their customers and that ongoing solution and service. So I love that. And I mean, look, you mentioned at the beginning of this that you've sort of been at Bytes for 10 years. You've been in the industry a long time. You worked for some credible businesses. You've built, ran, and led, some huge teams, right? What advice would you have for others that were looking to get into technology, but specifically within the sort of solution provider world?
Well, so I started out, if you go back to the beginning of my career, over 20 years ago, I started out on a help desk in customer land.
Love that.
And before that, I did some summer jobs that were not enjoyable in the slightest. So by comparison to some of those, this is an amazing place to work. I mean it more sincerely than that as well. I think, in the channel, you get to be close to, I've said it a few times, like value creation. And I think, if you're comparing it to when I was sort of working on the internal side, being on this side, you're in the driving a business forwards. And I think if you're involved in that, then it's pretty exciting. And, you're contributing to, the overall growth of your company and your organization. So I think it's a great thing to get into. Like we said before, it's been a tough few years in every corner of the UK economy, but this is still a pretty good place to be. You still get to be, at the forefront of things that are happening, and in with the change, not just the change happening to you. And for me, those are all pretty great things to do. So I think it's if I were rewind back far enough, if I'd have realized, understood this side of the fence earlier than I did, I would have moved even earlier.
Oh, love that. What, opposed to sitting on a help desk for 20 years?
Well, yeah, I did. Yeah, well, I did sysadmin as well, and a few things like that, and it was, but it's great grounding of understanding where customers come from and things like that. And when you stood in a data center in a basement that's flooded because no one thought to not put it in the basement, and you're wheeling hit out of it before it all blows up, it's different.
So, Simon, but I love that, and we touched on that at the beginning, that, the fact that you've progressed through, and now you've even mentioned even more, right? Help desk, systems engineer, consultant, architect, pre-sales, head of, right? But that makes the best leaders. They've been there and done it, bought the t-shirt, but have still got the drive and grit to continue doing what they do, to embrace change and, value creation. I love it. So much has stood out today in terms of you as an individual and how you lead and how you drive things forward, while taking your team on that journey with you. But also, just, excuse my language, not bullshitting. Things are difficult. There are challenges. Things won't always go right. But it's actually having one, the right personality character to overcome that to then continue pushing forward, but also make sure you've got the right steps in play that if things do go wrong, you can overcome it quickly. Yeah.
That's one of my biggest things is, you know, things are going wrong all the time. I get things wrong. Everyone gets things wrong every day.
Absolutely.
And we all, you know, and things go wrong all the time. It's, you know, is fixing those and adapting and growing off of the back of that. That's the biggest thing.
Brilliant. Simon, look, there has been some amazing insights. Honestly, I've absolutely loved hearing more about Bytes, but more importantly, you as an individual, you know, your career, your history, what you love, and what you've achieved has been brilliant. I do want to finish off with just a few fun, quick-fire questions. So I'm going to hit that before we close off. So, right, cool. And it's literally in one or two words, one sentence, the max, right? So which three people would you like to invite to dinner? Dead or alive? I know it sounds a little bit crude when I say that.
Rick Mail, Stephen Fry, and Russell Kane. I reckon that'd be a fun dinner.
That would be, yeah, absolutely. Oh my word. Okay, cool. I think I know the answer, but I don't know. Microsoft or Apple?
I don't think I'd be allowed to work at Bytes any longer if I didn't say Microsoft. So it's Microsoft every day of the week. Yeah.
Perfect. Football or rugby?
Rugby.
Good man. Good man. I'm the same. Who'd support?
Bath.
Great. Fantastic. Okay, cool. Degree or apprenticeship?
Oh, my opinion's changing on this. Maybe it's apprenticeship.
Okay. Do you know what? We'll come back to it another time. One thing, like a passion or a hobby that most people don't know about you.
Skiing.
Okay, cool, good. And then favourite technology over the last 20 years?
Favourite technology? Solar panels. They're saving me money.
Yeah, absolutely. And then best thing about the channel?
Opportunity.
Perfect, cool. And then I'm going to finish off with what is your motto or a strap line that you live by?
Take ownership, be creative, and work together.
Absolutely fantastic. Simon, listen, that has been amazing, mate. Honestly, the insights there have been, yeah, we've been brilliant. And, you know, I just want to once again thank you for your time. I know it's not easy to put, you know, best part of an hour aside. There's been some amazing insights, you know, so to everyone that's tuned in, everyone that's either watching this now or going to watch it, you know, if there are any comments that you want to make, please reach out to either Simon direct or myself or add something below. Furthermore, if you want to subscribe to InfraViewing, please do so or reach out to me direct. And I'd happily get you under the spotlight. But once again, Simon, I just want to say thank you so much. Amazing insights, clearly doing things the right way. And I wish you all the best of luck moving forward, mate.
Cheers, Tim. Thanks for having me.